Rarely.
One
Rarely,
page.
parang
It's oral.
yeah,
Yes,
rarely.
no.
Parang if people say,
Then you fax it back.
that's it.
There's a
That's it.
form. So, but I mean,
But I personally, I have not been. Nobody has come to me and said we're reproducing your poem in an anthology. It's not a usual practice to know your rights. Really, you're just happy if people use your poetry and use your short stories. You stop there.
but as writers, of course, you would like your works to be, I mean, reproduced. You'd love to share it for, I mean,
Definitely.
definitely. But the thing is, of course, to communicate with the author and then to inform them when and where the work is going to come out.
That should be the practice.
That should be the
should be the practice. But
Yes.
that rarely occurs.
That really.
Actually, lately, hindi na masyadong problema kasi super konti na din yung gumagawa ng anthology.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then usually they're anthologies by university presses.
Yes.
And we work in university, so they have no recourse but to inform you.
Yes.
So,
Our problem mainly is in textbook.
Yeah.
Textbook publishing. Kasi they really use your work, then sometimes it's abridged pa. It's not your entire work or
But
the
your name
editing
appears
style.
there.
Yes.
But it's distorted. I mean, it's edited somehow.
And you just hear from someone that they've read
was
your
used.
work.
That
you have
ganyan.
no idea
You
about
have no idea
So,
about the
surprise,
author,
yeah,
about the
yung-
publisher.
Yes, okay. So, Attorney Louis, what kinds, I mean, you were talking about Phil Calls earlier and other
Yes.
managers that will be intervening on behalf of the artists in terms of economic rights, royalties, and when and where the work appears.
That's right. Yes.
That's their function.
Precisely that very problem really proves that there's a need to
Yes.
collectively manage copyright. So because on your own you cannot possibly do it, no? You cannot possibly run after
Each textbook.
different entities, different corporations
Yes.
all using your work.
yes.
'Di ba? So wala ka nang magagawa doon but to run after them and file cases. Whereas if you are part of a group, then that group will take up the cudgels for you, and maybe that group is also composed of well-known celebrity writers and authors. So they have a clout, no? Diba? They have a clout, and the playing field is level, diba? When it comes to negotiations. So, you know, I encourage all writers, authors to join these kinds of organizations, not only in the press and literature sector, but also in other forms of copyrighted works like music. So they have their own collective management organization or CMO. The visual arts also have their own, although it's just
Painters,
starting.
visual arts.
Visual arts meaning painters, sculptors.
Let's go back to that database that the IPO Phil is building up. What kind of the database will be mainly a registry of the artist and then the title of the work and when was that created? It's not necessarily the whole work that needs to be deposited with the IPO. How about if it's a painting? Will you have storage space for
Well,
paintings?
the
for
deposit
example?
with the National Library requires, under the law, that the best copy of the work be deposited with the National Library. So, well, actually, we still have to work this out, the details of our agreement with the National Library. A technical working group will be established so that we could meet and draw up the whole game plan regarding this deposit requirement of the law. But under the law, you should deposit 2 copies of your work with the National Library.
It's easy if it's if it's a literary work or of course like a
That's
song.
right.
I can
That's
deposit
right,
a CD. But what if my work is a painting, a huge one at that?
Oh, well,
or-
actually, I've seen the archives or the storage area of the National Library, and they do have different
have-
kinds of works there. They have statues. They have
statues are copyrightable.
yes, because yes, part of visual sculptures. They have different like designs of decorative products, all stored there in their library.
those are
Aside from the
only-
literary works.
Yes, but those statues and paintings are only copies of the original. I mean, I'm not gonna store my original with the National Library. I don't have to.
Well, yes. Well, actually, they are really the copies of the work, the original.
of the works.
Well, Well, some of it are what we call maybe how do you call it, the dummies or the replica.
Replica,
or
duplicates. Yes.
or maybe you can also take a picture of your work and then deposit it with the National Library.
So
That's also one.
But sir, there are
One
official
option.
papers. If you buy a painting, the painter himself
Ah,
will
yeah, yes.
sign it, and you have
That's right.
documentation.
They call it provenance.
There's a
Well,
certificate.
usually the ones that administer these kinds of documentation
you.
is the family of the painter himself.
Yes,
It's,
yes.
the estate,
Yes.
like the famous
Ang Kiyukok or
Marsolos.
Kiyukok.
That's right. Yes. So you get to know whether that piece of painting is really the original.
Yes.
So it has a
Provenance.
authentication,
yes.
provenance from the heirs of the painter.
I'd like to think that the database that the IPO will build is something that artists can use to keep track of
That's right,
which
yes.
work is going where or to whom is it
So,
sold.
for example, if you want to use a piece of literature or a piece of music, then you just have to go to the IPO.
Yeah, to the
and,
database. Will
go
that
to
be
the
online?
database.
Hopefully.
Yes,
Yeah, so
hopefully,
that
yes, yes.
if, for example, I'm a publisher, I'm looking for Filipino poems.
Yes.
I mean, I go there, I
Like
go online,
who owns
check
the
it.
copyright or whether it's still copyrighted.
Yeah, it's still alive or
How many years have passed since the death of the author, or what is the address or telephone number of the contact person?
But copyright.
So that's our plan.
That's our plan. So it's going to be user friendly and something that everyone,
be.
and because we are a very creative people. It's not
That's
only
right,
in Manila,
yes.
of course. Nationwide, they're probably also having this kinds of problems.
So in the end, we will function like a clearance center. Yeah, but
Yes.
that's the ideal plan.
So that's very good. Jing, are you gonna going to say something?
I was just supposed to ask attorney about this database and about the agency. For example, I joined this agency for writers, and then someone plagiarized my work. Then the agency would go after the person who used it unfairly. Who would shoulder the litigation cost? Should there be litigation?
Wow.
Well, no, it depends on between the organization and you. So it's an internal matter. Well, ideally, it should be the author himself. No? But I suppose these organizations will put up some sort of a fund that would take care of any future litigation involving their members. But the law doesn't specify who is
So it
supposed to be.
depends
But
on the agreement of the parties.
and since under the law it is the author or the owner of the copyright who has the right to file a case, so naturally he'll be the one.
Yes, but maybe the IPO can also provide for a dispute resolution mechanism so
Yes,
that
we-
you don't
we
have
do
to go
have.
to
That
court.
would be very ideal.
Yeah, we do have. Well, as part of our, because IPO functions much like a court. We are a judicial agency. Now, part of the litigation process within IPO or the administrative process is what we call there's a mediation period right after what the stage that we call pre-trial or preliminary conference. So within a 60-day period, the parties should be able to settle the case amicably with the help of a mediator accredited by the Intellectual Property
Do
Office of the
artists
Philippines.
utilize that mechanism within the IPO?
Yes, they did. And in fact, several years ago, the collective management for music filed several cases before our office for mediation against some users of their copyrighted works, big
Songs.
networks using their works. And happily, they were able to
Resolve.
resolve their dispute, and they were able to
How-
license these organizations for several years.
How long does mediation take for cases like that, for copyright cases within the IPO?
It's really a case-to-case basis. No? Ideally, the mediation should happen within a 60-day period.
60 days, so
Yes.
2 months. So within 2 months, hopefully
Within
there's
2
a
months.
decision.
But of course, technically also, in principle, mediation can happen at any stage of the case. So when the case is still starting, during the preliminary conference, we have a mediation period. And then maybe if they do not settle during that time, they can still settle even on appeal.
Okay,
Even
so that's still available
before it
for
reaches the Supreme Court, they can still mediate. No? Technically. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much to our guests for joining us this morning. And before I let them go, I'm going to give them a minute or so to give their exit speeches or greet anyone
Starting
in
with
particular.
you, sir.
Starting with Attorney Louis Calvario, then Jing, and then Muki. Attorney Louis, please invite them to support the Copyright Amendment Bill and do register for collective management organizations.
That's right. We encourage all the owners of intellectual property rights, particularly copyrights, first of all, to be aware of your rights. So we have a website, the Intellectual Property Office, where we have uploaded the entire code itself. And we also provide several basic seminars on intellectual property, on patents, trademarks, and copyrights. And we also encourage people who have copyrighted works to join organizations that would help them administer or enforce their copyright better than they would if they were working as individuals alone.
And also for mediation efforts, anyone
That's right,
out
yes.
there.
Whoever would want to mediate their cases can now file with the Intellectual Property Office. Not only for copyright, but also for other kinds of IP rights like trademarks and patents.
So if you have a problem as to who copied who, please go to the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines. It's a government agency mandated to administer the intellectual property system. All right, Jing?
Actually, about copyright, I respect and I believe in copyright, but somehow it's very hard to enforce it here in the Philippines if you're a writer like us. So writers like us just want to be appreciated and respected. So our works can be used by so many people, and really nothing makes me happier than opening my Facebook account and getting messages from random students from all over the country, sometimes from Mindanao, saying that they've read your work because their teacher made it read it. So that's fair use.
Yes.
But if you're a publisher and you make use of our works, so just please inform us. It can be for free. You just have to give us some respect, some recognition that
Give us a free copy.
a free copy so that we can file it. And we know that there's such a publication that exists. Sa akin, na worst shock that I had, but fun din naman, was when I googled my name to look for a work. I found it in a sex website being used
without
there.
your permission.
Ang labo. Why do you have it there?
Yes.
Parang super layo naman din ng work. So, basically, that's just it. Although it would be really nice if writers would be compensated for their works, but
Please respect our work.
but somehow we're also realistic. We know
Yes.
that
It's our day jobs that will support us.
that will
not
support
our
us, not our
literary
right.
All right, Muki, any last
So
words?
this will just basically parrot everything that's been said. I would just urge writers to register in this database that you were talking about, to basically be part of something legitimate and legal to protect their work. So writers just know how to protect your work.
Yes,
That's it.
all right. Thank you very much, Muki, Jing, and Attorney Louis. This has been your host, Attorney Sarah Jane Sugitan, signing off.
You have been listening to Piracy Watch with attorney Sarah Jane Sugitan. Piracy Watch is an exclusive presentation of DZRJ 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines.